And just like that, here we are. Thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate it. I apologize to those folks on the East Coast of the U.S., North America, for the later start today, but I spent hours today, all day in fact, waiting for furniture to be delivered. It was supposed to arrive first thing this morning. It came here pushing 5 o'clock. But needless to say, everything worked out fine in the end. Furniture looks good. It's in place. And here I am. And yeah, I have something to talk about. And I hope you're doing well. I find myself suddenly in a contemplative mood when it comes to my phone. And not just my phone, but things that we own, especially in perhaps the not so distant future. Because what does it mean to own something? And what we're going to talk about tonight really is going to be hyper Apple focus for the moment. But it's not just about Apple, folks. It's not just about smartphones. It's about the things we own, many would argue. And so I suddenly find myself contemplating whether I want to stay with Apple. I've been with Apple many years. First Apple thing I remember buying was a MacBook Pro back in 2007. For several years, my wife and I have had Apple phones. We have an Apple TV. The phones, we've had a 4S, I know. We've had a 5C. I had a 6S Plus, and now I have my current 7 Plus. And even before I started becoming aware just very recently about where there's a lot of criticism and concern regarding Apple and its impact on the things we own going forward, I was not even yet excited about upgrading my Apple phone. I like the phone. The reason I'm really still with the phone is because of a couple of apps that are only on the Apple side. But before I get going too far here, I want to bring up a browser and see what other comments might be coming in. Looks like we have definitely Triple Tall and iBraddox. They're family members, so nice to have family on board. I want to encourage any of you who might be watching to feel free to join in on the chat too. So what got me suddenly hyper-focused on things Apple and the future of ownership, the future of owning things and what rights we might have, and what a question, what rights we might have or not have concerning the things we own in the future. That might sound big brother and far off, but really many would argue this is exactly what's playing out in the courts right now. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is share with you, just go ahead and play some of a news report which aired earlier this week nationally in Canada. It was a CBC in-depth investigation. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's 18 minutes plus, I believe, long. But I do have the link to it in the description below. I'm going to play the first few minutes that kind of show this issue in a highlighted way, but by no means it'll get your attention, but by no means does it dive into the depth, what we're going to show in just this segment of many would argue, what's at stake here. So let me go ahead and switch over to the other display, and we'll go ahead and just play the first bit of this report for your consideration. And again, feel free to chat.
This is the image of an Apple store that the company wants you to see. Masses of customers hungry for the latest product. Knowledgeable young staffers eager to serve them. A mad rush to be among the first to buy a brilliant new device. Lately, however, that positive image is being tarnished by stories of customers being wildly overcharged for repairs in Apple stores. We decided to use a hidden camera to verify many reports that Apple customers are often told their malfunctioning computers are not worth fixing, even when minor repairs could remedy the problem.
How are you? I have an appointment at 2:30. Come with me.
Our team came to a Toronto Apple store with a MacBook computer that had a common problem. The screen had stopped working.
It's like very dim when I try to turn it on.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll jump out the back and have a look on the inside.
Sure.
Thank you for your patience. So there's a lot of liquid that's gotten on the inside. So I took a little picture. The little red dots here, they're normally white, and it means that they've come in contact with liquid. So for it to be basically all over the whole computer, it means that something's gone through the whole thing. So with that, we'd need to be looking at replacing quite a few components.
Are you sure could it be something else as well?
Well, regardless of what the cause of it is, if it isn't the liquid, we have to fix the liquid. So it's not like we can't do partial repairs when it's been damaged by something.
So what are my options now?
Well, what I was going to say is basically all the components that we need to replace is going to cost more than $1,000. So
to fix it entirely will cost more than $1,000?
Yeah. So at the very least we'd need to replace is the logic board and the top case. So that we're looking at $600 plus $500, so $1,100 with a labor of $100. And then if we need to replace the display as well, that's another $780. So the display we may not need to replace, but we're still looking at a total of around $1,200.
Wow. So just to be clear, there's no cheaper alternative for this?
I mean, that cost is very close to the cost of buying a new computer. In terms of fixing it in the store, no.
Many Apple customers have shared similar experiences, and so we decided to double-check the diagnosis. On First Avenue in Manhattan, there is a small computer repair store run by Louis Rossman. He started fixing computers in college and now makes YouTube videos teaching people how to repair complex items.
Overall, Apple tries to get you to purchase a new device instead of repair your old one.
His videos often draw millions of views. We brought him the computer that the Apple Store in Toronto said was not worth fixing.
Have a seat.
So this is a MacBook Pro that the Apple Store said would cost $1,200 to fix and wasn't worth doing.
All right, let's take a look and see if that's true. See, you can see the Apple logo there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and watch, if I take a light and I put it through there, you'll actually be able to see everything on the screen. So this is my microscope light. And when I put it right through here, you can see that there's a cursor there and that it's moving. So most of the screen is working properly. It's just that the backlight is not working.
Right. This
could be either due to a bad screen, a bad motherboard, bad cable, but we'll figure that out once we open it up.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a look on the inside of this. Now, this is where the screen is going to connect to the computer.
Okay.
So the first thing I'd want to do is examine that area of it to see what it looks like. See the pin that's sticking out?
Okay.
So that pin is actually most likely the pin for the backlight. And as you can see, it's probably not making contact because it's bent outwards. And I got my set of tweezers over here, and I'm just going to try to push that back into the slot and try to get it back into its groove so that when I re-plug in the connector, it'll work.
At the Apple Store, they suggested this was water damage.
Well, you can see that there are water indicators that have turned red, so that's why they got that idea, and they're by the battery. So this is a water indicator, and these turn red when they see liquid. However, the thing here is that these not only turn red when they see liquid, they also turn red anytime there's humidity. So if you have this in a very humid room, all of these sensors will turn even if you've never spilled liquid on the machine. All right, so let's plug this back in and hope for the best. All right, as you can see, we've got an Apple and we have a light.
So it fixed.
Yeah, now...
That took you like 1.5 minutes?
Maybe.
So if I walked in off the street with this problem, what would you charge for the repair you just did?
If somebody wanted me to just bend the pin back, I wouldn't charge them for that. I would say, I'm going to rework your original cable. That may not last long term, but here, it's free. If they wanted us to replace the cable, depending on the model, anywhere from $75 to $150, depending on the difficulty of opening that model. But something like this, we wouldn't charge for it. And 99% of the time, just bending the pin back, it'll allow it to last until the end of the life of the computer.
We asked Apple to respond to this incident.
It's going to cost more than $1,000.
To fix it entirely will cost more than $1,000?
Yeah.
And to the widespread allegations of similar corporate behavior. They declined to provide a spokesman, but issued a statement claiming their customers are best served by Apple's certified experts using genuine parts. They denied systematically overestimating repair costs.
How often do people show up here with the Apple Store telling them it can't be fixed or it's too expensive to fix?
Somewhere between 10 and 30 times a day.
No kidding.
Yeah.
In San Luis Obispo, California, iFixit is probably the most successful. Knowledgeable young staffers eager to serve them. A mad rush to be among the first to buy a brilliant new device.
Okay, my apologies, you guys. I had the mic down. My wife just came downstairs to let me know, so I apologize for that. The young man, I say young man because he's younger than me, but he's on YouTube, and what he does is, in addition to his business, he makes videos, and you heard he's got quite a following, where people send him their Apple devices that the Apple Store or Apple support has told him that simply cannot be fixed, or they're going to be costing an arm and a leg, or they just refuse to fix them. They need new ones, things like this. And he just makes these videos where he reads what the person who sent him the Apple product has detailed in the history of their usually frustration, and he goes in and he fixes things. Now there's that component of it, and then there's this whole thing where apparently Apple is trying to keep third parties from doing fixes, even if it's refurbishing something. In other words, taking an Apple part and say a screen and putting it in, but they're being these businesses have been threatened. And there's a gentleman in Norway who won against Apple. Apple's now appealing, and I believe the gentleman in Norway has a business where he refurbishes screens, because usually the screen it's just the touch screen that's actually damaged when there's screen damage. The LCD, that's probably not the proper terminology for an Apple screen, but the display usually is fine. So often it's just the touch, and that can be replaced with an Apple product, just refurbishing it with a used one, if you will, a used touch screen. And this young man who you saw in the New York store, I was watching several of his videos today and this evening, and he does great work. And he is saying that he hopes to go to Norway in 2019 because Apple's appealing the case there that it lost, and he wants to be there to cover it, and he hopes to live stream. So I put his link. Lewis is his name, and there's a link to his channel below in this description. So I'd like to bring up your comments and see what we're getting here. So far, no additional comments, although she says, Bradley is saying, Radix 360, yeah, MacLady, I'm serious, you could get in some legal trouble. I'm not sure what Bradley's referring to. Let's see, MacLady said, I jailbreak my son's iPhone years ago. No app, then just followed instructions found on a geek site. Worked beautifully, would not trust an app. Okay, that's interesting because I'm not sure if you're going here with this, but I think I know what you're saying. The primary reason I'm still with Apple is I respect its App Store in the sense that I feel safer with its App Store than the Google offering. Now, maybe that's unfounded, but historically, I think that there's been more kind of wide open seas, willy-nilly stuff on the Android side. I used to have a Droid Incredible. That's how far back I go, since I've had an Android. Good discussion in the chat. So I have a son who's 22 now, and he's at college. He works full-time, and he's in the Army Reserves. I share all that with you because I just kind of wanted you to kind of he's carrying a 4.0, by the way. He's doing great. And he works security at Microsoft. But he's been he left Apple, I want to say about a year ago, and he's been just always prodding me to leave Apple. If it wasn't for the Filmic Pro app and my temptation to go back and use a subscription app, Switcher Studio Pro, which is a great app, I haven't found equivalents to those two specific apps, which I really am a big fan of on the Android side. But now I'm going to start reprioritizing my selfish interests and needs, and I want to look more into just the bigger picture. Because if Apple is successful in helping redefine, or not helping, leading the way in redefining what it means to own something, what rights you, more importantly, don't have than do have as an owner. If you have a Chevrolet truck, is it going to be illegal for you under this kind of model that Apple seems to be pursuing to take it to an independent mechanic who's properly licensed? But could that mechanic get in trouble because he's not a Chevy license, specifically Chevy only, in the chain business operator? So if you dive into the links that I've provided, especially the young man, Louis Rossman, if you start listening to the stuff, Apple provides him great business because people are bringing their broken Apple products to him and he's fixing them because Apple won't. But you'll start seeing that there's a whole set of issues there that go beyond Apple, beyond phones, but what it means to own something. Mac Lady says, I stayed with Apple because I know how to do everything on it. Google products are tempting. Son now has an Android. Too old to learn Android now, LOL. It's funny you should say that because Louis Rossman, I believe it was, in one of his videos, he was saying that, that the 50 and 60-year-olds, the politicians, the ones who sat there and tried to take in Mark Zuckerberg's testimony during hearings in the nation's capital, everything was over their heads. We get kind of dismissed, I think, because we're not engaged and we're not diving in to know what. It's not that we need to know specifically how to operate all sorts of devices, but we should perhaps be making a better effort of knowing what privacy issues are at stake and things that we take for granted. You have a vacuum, your vacuum cleaner breaks, but could the person you take your vacuum to get in legal trouble? Could they get sued because you didn't take it to the manufacturer to get it fixed? So this is more of what's out. Susan North, I do not like Android at all. Sorry. Well, again, I don't want to make it an Apple versus Google or Apple Android battle. I think that there are, and although I know that's kind of, what's immediately in front of us, but a lot of companies follow Apple. They look to follow Apple on the cell phone or mobile phone, smartphone level, getting rid of the headphone jack, having the notch on a phone. Apple's gone so far as to start, I believe, gluing in its batteries to make it difficult to remove for third parties, to solder in things that used to just easily become disconnected. They make unique screws that aren't made anywhere else so that the person at home or the business person who typically fixes these kind of things wouldn't have the appropriate screw. So they're really going out of their way to, some would argue, make it next to impossible or at least extremely difficult for anybody other than Apple to fix these things. And here's the thing that doesn't get spoken about that I feel on my heart, and that is if people are being told that things aren't able to be used anymore, that you need to buy a new one, we are going to be just pouring through resources and creating more electronic garbage, if you will, that literally, ends up in the landfills. And so from a even bigger picture, from an environmental point of view, and I'm not an outspoken environmentalist, but it just seems, I guess I'm becoming more aware of it. We're going to just be producing more and more garbage, not in the sense that's garbage the moment we're using it. We love it like a pet, as my son might say, or he did say earlier. People treat their phones like pets. They're so slow to want to surrender them. But anyway, I just think about the environmental consequences if we're throwing good stuff away. The way it used to be is you treasured and you valued the resourcefulness of an individual or a business to be able to go in and keep something alive, if you will, so that its usefulness was still relevant and not worn out and not quickly discarded. This is another issue that reminds me of something else I was watching, again on YouTube. It was a good documentary about fast fashion and just how cheap clothes are being produced so quickly, and we own so much more and go through clothes so much more quickly now than we did, say, in the 1980s, and how even when we think we're giving away our clothes, our used clothes, to a charity, the vast majority of our clothes end up in landfills. And that means that all those dyes and chemicals that go into making clothes ultimately bleed or burn into our environment. So I think the environmental aspect of it is also something to consider. Just looking at the comments, Susan North, let's see, Mac Lady says privacy is the issue. We've already lost it with apps. Then turn on your microphone and listen. And Facebook is the big culprit. Let's see, Mac Lady, that's why you need good gearhead. Bradley's pushing for a Nokia. And Susan says, what they said at Apple is that the millennials want the new phone every 6 months. Well, and there you go. The conditioning of I got to keep getting something new, and we're just pushing out product and we're discarding stuff. And so we're creating, just more ultimate refuse, which has environmental, I would think, consequences as well as other consequences. Now, all of that said, I want to be fair to Apple. I had a tremendous experience with Apple that goes right against this. And that's because they gave me a new phone right here. This one's new. They didn't even charge me. And I want to show you the reason behind all of this. Just a second here. Get rid of the webcam here. And let's flick over to this. I put my iPhone 7 Plus in the Pilchuck River. Sure, feel free, don't hold back. I imagine some adjectives immediately come to mind to describe this decision and me at this moment. I had done it about a week earlier and had great success. It was only about, I would say, 7 to 12 inches deep. I had known where they had tested it, where it would very likely be, quote, water resistant up to a depth greater than that. But what I didn't really consider was the angle of the phone was like these fish, so I'm facing them, obviously. And I believe the water was just rushing into the foam from the right side, the upriver side, as the water just pushed right to left into the foam. So even though I got this outrageously great video of pink salmon, the humpies as they're nicknamed, returning to this river to spawn, later that day I noticed a little drop of moisture. And ultimately, you guys, what happened, and I know it's crazy, is my phone bit it. And I tried the rice thing, I tried brown rice, I tried other things, where you submerge it and then put it in a Tupperware and, all that stuff. Didn't save the phone. Well, I went to the Apple store at the Alderwood Mall in Linwood, Washington, and a good test for waterproof. Yeah. And I did not have a waterproof case. And I sat there waiting my turn, sat at a table with other, all these tables are filling up with people waiting to be serviced. And the young man said, he did what, they do. They said, let me take it in the back room and take a look at it. And he came back, he spoke to his manager or boss, and they came back, and I'm expecting to be at least a few $100s out. And I had insurance, and he said, you know what? And he showed me the thing on the left-hand side where just inside the phone, there's this white material that turns red. The pinker, maybe a slight pink is a bit of water damage. Mine was blood red, okay? And so it was apparent to them I'd been painfully honest in my story, and they said, you know what, you were so honest with your story, we're just going to give you a new one. And he put this paper in front of me, and he said, this is what it would have cost you. And it was between, I think, $300 and $400. Well, and I also had the insurance, but I didn't have to use my insurance. I didn't have to pay a single penny. The Apple Store gave me a new iPhone 7 Plus. So I was extremely fortunate in that case. I had a life-proof case. I think it was for my 6S Plus, and I experienced audio issues. I can't remember exactly what it was. I still have it sitting around here. I never returned it. Susan North says Androids are not waterproof. Anyway, I don't claim to be an expert. I don't even claim to be a fish expert. I'm obviously not. Let's just call this an iPhone 7 Plus test in shallow water. And in this particular case, it failed, but Apple really stepped up. All right, so let's bring it back over to the camera. And I'll bring that audio down. Actually, what I'll do, I better go back and, pardon me, I gotta do the discretionary thing and stop that video so we don't keep on hearing the fish at the bottom of the Pilchuck River. So let's bring that up. And the other monitor that's playing this fish video is in another room outside the walls I'm in, and I'm remotely going over, and we will pause that. And now we'll bring it back to our camera. Fantastic. So I want to bring up your comments in addition to this. Here we go. Apple has always been good to me, Max Lady said. And you know what? When I bought the MacBook Pro in 2007, I got the Apple Care, and it was phenomenal. Fantastic customer support. I mean, dealing with somebody on the phone was they picked up the phone, easy to understand, effective, right to the point. It was great. I thought, man, I'm never going to end up using Windows again. But there's a Windows machine here. My wife has a Windows machine. I think Windows has really stepped up its game. But, again, I'm looking beyond. I'm trying to really put I'm trying to consider and do a bit of due diligence about what Apple really is trying to achieve in terms of what it might mean to own something, what rights you may or may not have in owning something, and whether it's just flat out wrong that good stuff is getting discarded because they refuse to fix it properly, or they just refuse to fix it rather, or they want to charge you an arm and a leg and ultimately, encourage you just to get a new one and be out money. I mean, I watched one video where that young man, Louis Rossman, repaired something that it was just a little bit of corrosion on something, and he went in there and did the job and fixed it, and the young woman's going to have her Apple computer back, and it's going to, after she was being told a completely different story from an Apple store. So this is what's got me contemplating things. It's very selfish, but I really like the ecosystem of Apple. My 22-year-old son says I'm missing the boat and I should be leaving Apple. But outside of the immediate, what do I like better? What operating system? The Apple product, brand, or going with Android, going Google, or some other alternative. I'm thinking even beyond that. And I think that's where more of us need to be thinking. If you just follow links, follow that guy, Louis Rossman, watch a few of his videos. He does swear in some of them. If you're prepared for that, if that doesn't bother you, or if you can tolerate it. But the guy, he knows his stuff, and he can just rattle off this, and he demonstrates, and he shows you where things can work that Apple said wouldn't work, or they just wanted someone to buy a new one. So now, with that said, I was hoping that maybe someone out there might want to help take this live stream that I do now, aiming to do it every Saturday, to the next level, as they might say. That's bachelor and bachelorette talk, I'm told. See, Mac Lady says, I am with you. We'll stick with Apple. Susan North says, no Android for me, getting a 9 or the XR. And here's where I think we can try and take it to the next level. You guys are willing to play ball with me? Who would like to, ta-da, call in and speak with me directly? I have a number. I think we've got this configured where it should work. If you would like to call me and talk to me live on the channel right now, I'm at 425-286-8715. And would love to have you give me a call. Just keep in mind that when you hear me in the call, the program runs about 20 seconds behind. So you'll be looking, if you don't turn your screen down or whatever you're watching me on, whether it be your tablet, your phone, or your Mac or your PC, you might want to turn that audio down or just step away from it, because we'll be talking in real time where this program has about a 20-second lag. So feel free to give me a call at 425-286-8715. Tell me what you love about Apple. Tell me what you don't like about Google, or vice versa. Tell me if you see some of the issues in your mind that that address this whole ownership thing, and whether or not you think it's right or wrong for third parties to be able to work legally on Apple products in terms of refurbishing things, using legitimate Apple products to fix Apple products. So feel free once again to give me a call at 425-286-8715. And I can sit here and twiddle my thumbs because I know there's a 20-second delay, and maybe you're just now hearing this. So if not, I'll have a family member give me a call. iBradix and Triple Tall, just hold steady there. We'll see if anybody else calls first. If not, one of you could call. Dead air. Come on, guys, don't be shy. I would love to talk to you. Mac Lady, Susan North. Maybe I need the 1-800 number. Is that it? Although a lot of plans these days give you unlimited long-distance calling, don't they? If Osprey Mama was watching, perhaps she would call, but it's late in Florida. It's 11:13, whereas it's 8:13 p.m. Pacific time here in Washington State. Here comes the call. All right, a call has come in. Who am I speaking to tonight? Uh-oh. We're not getting the call. Did we lose that person? We should be hearing. Oh, it looks like it's iBradix. It says it's still coming in. Here, let's try it again. Okay, here's a call. Who am I speaking to?
Hey, Mark, it's Kit.
Kit, how are you? Kit from Redding, California. Hi, Kit. Pleasure to have you here.
Well, I can't believe no one's calling you. I thought, my goodness.
Well, I don't know how many people are on right now, but it's probably just a small number. There was no real heavy promotion. Normally, I would be on a few hours earlier, but this is fantastic. So I got to ask get the questions out of the way. Can you hear me? Okay. Do you feel good about the quality of the call, Kit? First time doing this.
Yes, first time I've done it also. I'm walking away from my tablet.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So, Kit, what do you use for a phone? Do you have an iPhone or do you have an Android?
I have an iPhone. I had to just buy about 2 months ago. I had a 5 and I just got an 8.
Oh, so you just recently made a big upgrade going from a 5 to an 8.
Yes, because my 5 didn't work anymore and they said I needed to get a new one.
And so far, I have 2 questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have what's a tablet? What's that thing called?
Oh, you have an iPad?
Yeah, I have an iPad. It's old, and they told me I need to get a new one. And I also have a MacBook, which is old, and they said I need to buy another one. So
how many years have you been with Apple, Kit?
Probably about 8.
Well, that's long enough to form
10 years.
Form an opinion. Have you ever had issues where you've had to deal with getting something fixed, dealing with customer service, and how do you feel about that experience?
We have a local person here that does a really nice job.
Ah, okay. So you're
But
not-
I haven't had too many. I really haven't had too many issues. Basically, it works, and I'm happy.
So when you say a local person, are you going to a third party rather than taking it directly to Apple?
Yes, we don't have an Apple store here in Reading.
Okay, so you're in Reading, California. I have an assignment for you, if I may be so bold.
Okay.
Next time you chat with that person at the Apple store, not at the Apple store, but at the local store that will work on your Apple products, ask them. I would what that Apple person, or not that Apple, I keep on going there. I would love to know what that repair person has to say about any concern he or she might have about being able to work on Apple products. My gut kit is that this person is aware of this issue of Apple trying to keep Apple repairs away from third parties and only coming into the Apple store. I would love to know what your local repair person has to say about that issue. Would you mind if you can remember it next time you
Sure.
deal with that person to ask and get back to us? That'd be great.
Sure.
And
I'll
also,
check.
And before we let you go, two things. The smoke has been clear in Reading now for, a couple of weeks, maybe longer?
Yes. Amen. Hallelujah. I can
Yeah.
breathe.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also, you were recently in Australia with Jamie
Christian.
and
Christian and Jamie.
Yeah, and you took Christian's night sky photography class. I know you had a great experience. Just maybe share a few words about that.
Oh, if you're even remotely thinking of it, just do it. It was fabulous.
Wonderful.
Christian's great, and he's a great teacher, and you have opportunities that unless you're with Christian, you can't do. He can open up a lot of doors there. He's the head astrologer there now, and so we got to tour the whole place, and the people were wonderful, and the stars and skies and kangaroos and birds and everything were wonderful.
Right. At the Sighting Spring Observatory, where he's the astronomer in charge. And that's Christian Sassy at Sassy
Right.
Photo. All right, Kit.
Right.
The calls keep coming
And we stayed right there.
Yeah.
And really nice accommodations, and the food's good, and the whole setup is really, really nice.
Fantastic. Well, Kit,
Yeah.
thank you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I imagine our viewers are hearing it. The calls are coming in now, so I better hang up and see who we got next in line. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye, Mark.
Bye-bye. Hi, this is Mark. Who's calling?
Hi, Mark. This is Susan.
Susan in Chicago, right?
Susan. Well, I'm in Arlington Heights, but I'm near Chicago.
All
so
right.
I just want. How are you? I couldn't hear your when you were talking. It was really hard to hear. I need to get a new phone, but this is what happens with the phones, and it's not just Apple. It's Android too. Because I was going to get the Samsung 6S.
Okay.
And it had the lithium battery in it, and those were the phones that were exploding. So they're all like, if it depends on who your phone carrier is. It depends if your phone is locked or unlocked. An unlocked phone means you can get service from any phone carrier. Like if I wanted to switch from AT&T to Verizon to T-Mobile, I can do that. But if you get a phone that is bought at an iPhone that's bought at an Apple store, an AT&T store, or a Verizon store, it's what's called a locked phone. Only Verizon can take care of it. And the thing that happens is when there's a problem with an iPhone, even in a big city like Chicago metropolitan area, if there's a problem with an iPhone, they tell you to go back to Apple. And the people in Apple are wonderful. It's just hard to get an appointment, but they're great. They're nice. I've never really had a problem with the salesperson there. I've had problems with people that work at AT&T and Verizon with attitudes. and I need to get a new phone because I have an iPhone 6. They don't make it anymore. I could get a 7. They're still found. I could get an 8. They have the better battery. And I don't care about the 10 or the XS that they came out with. The XR is less money. They're coming out with an iPhone 9 at the end of the year. And I asked the guy, I said, why is there a new phone? This was an Apple when I got, excuse me, my 6, which was almost 3 years ago. I said, why are there new phones every 6 months? The millennials need a new phone every 6 months.
How do you feel about
They
that?
drive the market. They drive the market. How do I feel about that?
How do
They
you
drive
feel,
the market for.
Yeah. It's because to me,
They drive the market.
I'm sorry.
The
go ahead,
millennials
Susan.
drive the market. The millennials drive the market on food, clothing, cars, everything. I'm 65. I'm invisible. Everything is geared towards being 30, 32, 35. Anything over 40, you're done. I'm not joking.
Oh, I can relate. It doesn't keep me from fighting for, for opportunities and
I know
and whatnot. And, to be heard,
and the thing with,
but I hear of
and
what
the
you
thing
speak,
with,
my friend.
excuse me, I have a problem with my throat tonight. The thing with going to a third-party person to do your phone,
Yes.
if you have an unlocked phone and they really know what they're doing, when you open a phone, you need to be in a hermetically sealed room where there's very little dust. You can't just do it like in the middle of your living room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to have the tools, and it's hard to have, the Hawks won. They tied. I don't know. Sorry. You have to have a certain amount, it's like if you're taking a hard drive apart. You have to have a certain amount of cleanliness. And if you have an unlocked phone, again, that means you can go to any carrier. If you take it to a person that you really trust, that really knows what they're doing with an iPhone, then you can go. But if you have Apple Care, there's no point
Well,
in taking to a third party.
So I sense that you're very happy with Apple, and that you've had what you would describe as overall.
I'll tell you what it was. I'll tell you what it was. I was going to get the Galaxy 6S, which was the one that ended up exploding. You never know which cell phone is going to have a problem, and that's why there's chocolate and vanilla. When you go to AT&T, you've got one guy going, "I love my Apple," and the other guy going, "I like my Galaxy," and it's a 50-50 split, basically. It's right down the middle. You've got that many people that love their Galaxies, and you've got that many people that like Apple. And then there's other models in between, and there's people that don't care. They just want any kind of an Android or a pay-as-you-go phone. I think Apple is easy to use.
I
was going to have to go take a class to learn how to use the Galaxy 6, because in order to get to the home page, you had to go to 3 other pages you can't just turn your phone on and you're right there.
Okay.
It was like this whole big convoluted thing.
Yeah. Susan, I really appreciate your call and sharing tonight. I'd like to encourage you to check out this guy's channel, Louis Rossman. He was featured in the national story on the Canadian television news. His link to his channel is down below. Louis Rossman. And there's a link down below this video to his channel. And you can see where, it's LOUIS ROSS.
MAN. There's another.
Yeah.
MANN.
Yeah.
There's another woman that has a website. Her name is called Kim Commando. KOMANDO.
I've been listening to her for years. I haven't listened to her recently, but she's been on the radio.
She'll tell you just about anything you want to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I'm old, and it's just really easy to use an iPhone, and that's the bottom line. They're simple.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your call, Susan. It's wonderful to speak to you in person and hear your voice.
Yeah, finally. And you know what? I can't hear the volume on your program tonight. Could be my phone, but your volume is very low.
Okay, I'll
I don't know.
Got a couple of
when
family members
your broadcast.
Watching. Okay, I've got a couple of people in the house who are watching, and they can let me know whether or not it sounds good here. That'll help us do some
It
troubleshooting.
it could be my phone. And
Okay.
again, I could still get a battery for my phone, but I'm itching for a new phone. So
Okay. All right.
one of those things.
Thanks, Susan.
Okay,
You have a great
now I
night.
have to go back to the YouTube because I can't do the same two things at the same when I call on my phone.
All right.
That's
Have a
why I
great
think
night.
those are two things. Okay, thanks.
Thank
I
you
love
for
your news feeds. Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you so much. Thank you for staying
Okay,
up late.
bye.
Bye-bye.
This
that
is
was-
early for me. It's only 10:30. I'm a night owl.
Okay,
So-
wonderful. I am too. I hear
Okay.
you. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So that was really nice. Nice to hear both from Kit Harvey and from Susan North, Kit in Redding, California, who's been joining me on Periscope and now here on YouTube, Periscope for years. And Susan North, Susan in the Chicago area, just outside of Chicago. And so once again, I'm going to see if anybody else wants to join in. This has been neat to actually speak with you folks, as opposed to just sharing thoughts in the comments or whether it be on YouTube or on Periscope. So if you'd like to get through, let's give it another whirl, see if anybody else wants to jump in. 425-286-8715. This is a Skype phone number that I've just recently acquired for this very reason, so that we can talk. And in the future, I'll bring in some guests as well. In fact, I might get a second Skype number, one for the public, one that I don't put out publicly, but is exclusively for guests. Anyway, we'll work all that out. And again, it's my first time using the Skype on live streaming. And so I know that you're hearing the additional calls coming in when we have someone on. I apologize for that. I've got to check the settings and make sure that we don't have that issue reoccur, so that when folks do call, they get a voicemail if I'm in a current call or a busy signal. Ideally, if I had a system set up where I had, like, on the front, say Frasier, where you have the producer Roz, right, in the booth, and she pre-screens the calls and have them holding, that would be ideal, wouldn't it? But I'm not there yet. But this is a lot of fun. It's awesome to be able to speak with you folks. And again, anybody who's watching, and including the replay, I do encourage you to explore this issue from the not a Apple versus Google or Android or another manufacturer, but rather to consider it from get educated. Watch some of these the Canadian in-depth report from the newscast a few days ago. Link is below this video. Watch this man Louis Rossmann in New York, who was featured in that Canadian news report, because he's getting stuff all the time. He says he fixes between 10 to 30 Apple devices a day, or they come in a day. I don't know whether there was a distinction there, and he shows it. He shows it in his YouTube videos. There's a reason a nearly 20-minute long in-depth report for Canadian television went to him, because he knows what he's talking about. And he's fixed countless, it seems, thousands of Apple devices for people, many, if not most of whom were not getting the response from Apple that they had hoped for. So, check out his Louis Rossmann. He swears here and there, but he sure knows his stuff. And I respect that. And I think that the Canadian television news report, the in-depth story, was, quite frankly, excellent television journalism. I worked in television for 20 years. I was an investigative reporter for a good chunk of that time. And I appreciate good boots on the ground, getting out there and really taking the time to tell a story. Let's see. I think we have 10-year-old Bradley Horner here. Bradley, what's on your mind, iBraddox360? Let's see. We're not hearing him. Why aren't we hearing Bradley? This is interesting. It must be something on Bradley on your end. We're just not. You might want to do a microphone test. Go ahead and hang up. Go into Tools and check your mic settings, because I'm not hearing you. So let's have you double check your Skype, okay? Or I'm not sure what you're using to call me. Maybe you're using a phone. Yeah, Bradley, go ahead and ask your mom if you can borrow her phone, or use the home phone and call in. That'd be great. Thank you. All right. I think he's got something to say. He's 10, but he really knows tech. I'm not saying he's an expert, but he's, I think, further along than at least certainly I would have been if I was 10 at this time. He's really got a mind for and a curiosity He reads books on Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and loves figuring things out, and he's done some coding. So I think that's great to see young people doing that. Anyway, let's go back and check those comments. I can hear the pitter-patter of footsteps upstairs above the ceiling. That's where Bradley would be, so I think he's running for a phone. I'm going to make sure I bring your comments up so we don't miss that there. So Susan said Australia is great in response to Kit. Anyway, we'll give it a bit here, a bit longer. Yeah, by the way, oh, let's try this now. Okay, Bradley, I can hear myself in the background. Could you either turn down your device that's playing the live stream, or maybe go to a different room?
Okay.
What's on your mind, Bradley?
Okay, so I was reading the comments in the live stream, and a lot of people are saying that they're sticking with Apple because they're more simple. Okay, but of course, you're also speaking from a perspective that's gotten used to that product, right? And what I think is you can always get used to something else. It would just be harder to get used to it because obviously you're attached to something else, right?
So your point is, once we become comfortable with something, especially for us older folk, that we don't want to have to deal with that whole breaking in, that learning curve, and all of that when we know already that this other thing, we already know where everything is and how it works. We don't want to have to go through the frustration curve, if you will, let alone learning curve.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. And I don't want to offend anyone. That's just my personal opinion, but...
It sounds like a very polite and forceful opinion, Bradley. You said something earlier today. Maybe you could share it. Could you share your pet analogy when it comes to phones?
Okay, so the way how I think about phones is you might want to think about them as some sort of pet, okay? After a while, your pet dies, right?
Right.
So then you might be pressured to buy a new pet. This pet would be better, it would be alive, obviously, and it would actually function properly, and it would do all the things that pets do.
But are you saying that people have that kind of almost like emotional attachment to the smartphone that they're used to, in the sense that they have...
Well, some people do, you know? Some people do, if they care about their phone enough.
Okay. Well, Bradley, anything else you want to say tonight?
No, not exactly. I just wanted to put that point out there.
So you would encourage people to give something new a try, that they can come to learn it. It's not a big obstacle, and it can even be exciting perhaps to learn and figure something out new. But don't knock it till you tried it, kind of a thing.
Yeah. That's kind of what life is about. You just got to try new things, see what you prefer.
Bradley, awesome. I appreciate your calling. You're the youngest caller on record so far. Let's see. All right. Thank you for calling tonight, Bradley. Really appreciate your input.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a good night.
Night.
See you later. So there we go. We go from a 65-year-old caller, I believe. Susan said she's 65, to a 10-year-old caller, who is Bradley, my 10-year-old son. But it's a family-friendly program. Nice to have Bradley participate. Let's see. I'm just going to check up on the comments. Mac Lady says, the thing that keeps me from switching is my music. I use iTunes on desktop and on the smart devices. And Susan Monroe says that's what Google is for doing during the learning curve. Bradley says, I try to stick to iTunes, but I want to use Spotify. Okay. Well, let's say this: there's a lot of honey out there that Apple and Google can slap on their respective devices, other manufacturers, that get us focused on the honey, but maybe not a bigger picture. And that's really where I'm coming from tonight. Again, I encourage you to watch the entire CBC Canadian television in-depth report. The link is, we showed a few minutes of it at the beginning of this live stream, but there is the link below this video to watch the entire report. It's an in-depth report. They put it on their national newscast. It's nearly 20 minutes long. And again, there's a very important case that Apple's focused on, very much invested in, out of Norway, where a third party, a guy has a shop where he repairs screens with Apple products, fixing Apple products. He's refurbishing. It's a very important word, refurbishing the screen, iPhones, I believe it is. And he was apparently sued by Apple, but he won. And now Apple is appealing. And again, the bigger picture is, what does it mean for you once you buy something to actually own it? What rights do you have in terms of what you can do to it, whom you can have repair it, and could you be breaking any laws even beyond your initial frustrations? If you live in Redding, California, where there's no Apple store apparently, and you go to the guy down the street who has a shop, what if Apple says, no, you got to send it in 2 weeks in the mail, and maybe you get it back a little bit after that. Let's see what the comments are coming in pretty quickly now. Great talking to you live. Likewise, Susan North, very much so. Braddock's chiming in about Android, about the OnePlus, Samsung, Razr. Bradley, you don't even own a phone here. Bradley, you're 10. Viewers at home, Bradley doesn't have a phone, but he likes to watch tech videos, and he does a lot of, like I said, tech stuff. Right now, his big thing is he's got what's called a launch pad. If you've seen any of those videos, it's like a rectangle with a bunch of buttons, and you can program it to play music, create music. Kit Kat says, Bradley, you're the youngest caller and I'm the oldest. And Mac Lady says, Apple can try to stop it, but do not think they can actually tell us what to do with a product that we have purchased from them. Well, Mac Lady, that would seem to get at the heart of it. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. But these things are actually being legally fought now. And again, as I've alluded to earlier in this broadcast, what I start thinking it from just how much waste there must be. If in fact, like this guy, I've got a link to his channel, he's featured in the Canadian News Report, but this Louis Rossmann, Rossmann, I've got a link to his YouTube channel below. There's a reason that an in-depth Canadian television report went to him. I mean, he delivers. He gets 10 to 30 Apple products a day, apparently, and he's fixing the stuff that the Apple Store totally overpriced, apparently, where people are being quoted hundreds, if not beyond $1,000 or maybe $2,000, and he's fixing stuff. Well, in the example that they showed, I think he said that there would be perhaps even no charge, but minimal at most. And it really is eye-opening because it's not just, what you get for your money or what you don't get, or the frustration with customer service. To me, how much stuff is being discarded that should not be being discarded, right? Because you're pushing product. Just a second here. I'm just going to bring display 2 up again. We talked about my experience with putting my iPhone 7 Plus in the Pilchuck River. And I just want to be fair to Apple. I got a great response from Apple. They replaced my phone for free. They said it was because I was so honest about I guess what sounded like a unique story to them. But I got a great video. In fact, I sell it online at Pound 5 as stock video. And oh wait, I think this is me bringing the phone out of the water here. Just a second. And that just gives you an idea for how shallow that water is. And Yeah, but my phone bit it. And I was there a week earlier, but I kept that phone in there for about 5+ minutes. And again, the water, I think, was just rushing into the side of the phone and into the phone because that was the exposed opening area where the speakers and the charging connector and everything is located. So I'll just do this one last time in case anybody wants to make a call. We'll just give this a minute. And if no calls, then we'll just call it a night. But I really have appreciated the opportunity to speak with you folks directly and to hear your voices. Kit has been up here from Reading, passing through on our way up to see Christian in British Columbia, Christian Sasa. And so we spent some time at the Mukilteo Lighthouse on a lousy weather day, but it was still beautiful. And I know she was very cold, but it's good to hear your voice on the phone, Kit. And I'm glad that we were able to provide a good phone connection and we got it right away, and to hear Susan North as well. So I'm just going to leave it here for just a moment longer. Got the 20-second delay. And if we don't hear from someone in the next minute or so, we'll call it a night. I also want to share, speaking of Bradley, I was thinking, if you're familiar with my logo for my channel, it features a tree, which people have said, hey, there's your tree. It's on a local road where I often do photography and live streaming. It's been kind of an inside joke. Hey, it's your tree, because I'm so often live streaming or featuring photos at sunset with that tree. Well, Bradley knew that I was looking on Fiverr.com and elsewhere to have a logo done. Bradley says, Dad, send me a picture of your tree. And then he came up with this. What do you guys think? He took my tree, and he knows I love blue, and he made this. And so should I change my YouTube? Right now it's orange, featuring the tree with the sun through it. And should I just jump in full scale here with this? What do you guys think? Don't worry, Bradley. I'm really proud of him. I didn't even have to spend $5 on Fiverr, right? Tell me what you guys think about this. And while we're doing so, I'll bring up your comments again. So hard when you are old information technology people who can set up computers. And I'm reading Susan's comment, Susan North. Oh yeah, Kit's coming up for the Eagle Festival in British Columbia, Canada. And why am I drawing? It's up at the Fraser River. What's the name of something Springs? Harrison Springs, right? Is that right? And I think we're at that point in the broadcast now where you're hearing me talk about the logo. I've been with this leg. Bradley is talented. I think so too, Kit. Yeah. Bradley, tell him what. Go ahead and write your comments in about what programs. You probably use Photoshop here, but I'm not sure. Harrison Mills. Thank you, Triple Tall. Harrison Mills, of course. I was up near the Canadian border last Saturday, a week from today, to watch the sunrise, and I was in Lyndon, Washington, and Randy Small, who lives up there, was my guide for the morning. We met for the first time in person, having met initially on social media. He's a photographer, and he was telling me how the cold weather can just come right down the Fraser Valley, and he talked about an ice storm that hit last December, and he shared video with us last week when we were live. And Mac Lady's chiming in. The iPhone cameras are decent too. Before Windows, there was DOS, and there still is DOS. If you ever take computer programming, you realize the computers are all mathematical. And yes, Bradley does like Python 3. He's even done a little tutorial. And Susan Monroe says, that's a great logo. Okay, you guys. Bradley, I think I'm going to perhaps make this, I'm leaning severely now towards making this the official logo. And why not? My son made it. My 10-year-old son. That's pretty cool. Yeah, he's got a great appetite for tech. There's no doubt about that. And his brother, Gabriel, who is 7, I think learns a lot from Bradley. And now Gabriel, who's 7, is helping kids with their computers at school when they have computer lab time. Isn't that something? I'm old enough where we didn't have computer labs when I was in school. In fact, when I went to college, I spent the first 2 years I went to community college, and I was on the school paper. And I remember writing an article about the computerization of FCC. It was Everett Community College. And we had the big mainframe computer, and I remember doing the interview with Mr. Kimball about that, and just how awesome that all seemed. And now look how things have just changed wildly, haven't they? Wildly. And just checking, Jamie is coming up with you too, Kit, to the Bald Eagle Festival in Harrison Mills. Ah, fantastic. Yeah, I would love to meet up, Kit. That would be fantastic. I don't know why Bradley was saying that. Quickly retracted. Why would you want to throw up, Bradley? Did that a typo? Anyway, you guys, no more calls coming in, so I think we're going to call it a night. I want to thank you very much for jumping on board and enjoying this ride with me tonight as we talk about Apple, and not only the phone side of things and the device side of things, but the bigger picture of what Apple is ultimately perhaps trying to achieve, or maybe it's all just for naught. Maybe the critics have it wrong, but I think there is something to why we should be concerned about what Apple is doing in terms of limiting the scope of where we can get repairs done, perhaps in the very near future. And certainly I'm very concerned when I see a guy with a YouTube channel with millions of views now who gets 10 to 30 Apple products a day, where the folks apparently in large part are not getting their satisfactory results with the Apple Store or the Genius Bar, or, calling up Apple. And so they're bringing stuff to him, and he's fixing things that were going to cost an arm and a leg, or perhaps we're said to be not fixable, and he's doing it. And he's doing it at a fair price, and sometimes even free. So, please, I encourage you to explore this issue by checking out the links beneath this video. Thanks a lot, everybody. Really appreciate it. And until next week, I look forward to perhaps talking to you at that time as well, if you want to give me a phone call. So take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.